What is up, guys? Welcome back to Straight Facts on YouTube. And today we got a video to help you guys stay a step ahead of the pack in your fantasy leagues this year. We know a lot of drafts are coming up, so we're going to give you guys 5 sleepers to pull out of your pocket in your drafts that the rest of the league are going to try to pick up off the waiver wire and be mad when they see you got them. So I'm here today, Kyle Sirik, and I'm joined by Jake Galley. Jake, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling great. This is my favorite time of year. I'm a huge fantasy football guy. I'm looking at, I think, 5 leagues this year.
Wow.
2 dynasty and then a work. It's really tough. I want to cut down. How many are you in?
I am in 2 currently, might be doing 3, but I also play the Millionaire Maker on DraftKings every week, and I love doing that. A little different DFS. Today we're just talking fantasy, though. So, Jake, let's get right into it. Who is your first sleeper?
So there's a lot of guys that, and also sleeper is a relative term. If you're in a 10-person league, a sleeper, a guy who's going, 10th round, something like that, will be a lot different than a 12-person league, 14, so on. So take these with a grain of salt. But assuming it's like a 12-person league, some of the guys that I like, and one guy in specific, the mix of Terrell Owens mixed with Randy Moss, Mr. Bryan Edwards of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's been getting rave reviews all camp. Coming out of college, he had really good metrics, great dominator rating, and he runs a very, very sharp set of routes. So when you plop him into that Las Vegas developing offense that they have over there, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to be had. There's reports that he's dominating camp this year. His first true camp, remember the rookies from last year, didn't get a camp. So he's a guy who I'm really going to try and nab late in 14th, 15th round.
And I think that's a great pick. Aguilar is gone now, right? He's in New England.
Yep.
So you're looking at him, Ruggs, and Renfro. And then is John Brown on that team maybe? But
the one thing to mention is that obviously you're going to be capped. Like his ceiling is probably low or high-end wide receiver 2 because of Darren Waller's presence.
Yep.
Now, that being said, he definitely fills in a position of need for the Raiders. It'll essentially be whose slot game is better, him or Hunter Renfro's. And I do like, as I was saying, you look up some highlights of him. He's a physical player, not the biggest guy, but runs sharp routes and plays hard. So, look, anything on that team, as you just said, Ruggs could pop off, Renfro could pop off. But if I had to pick, I'm going to go with Edwards.
I love that. And I just looked up his average draft position. He's going as the 73rd wide receiver off the board. And we could be looking at a guy by week 3 who's playing 80% of snaps.
Yep.
So I love that one. We'll get into my first sleeper, and that's Deebo Samuel. A little higher up, but I think the reason here is you look at his counterpart, Brandon Ayuk. So Deebo Samuel's average draft position right now is 96, and Ayuk's is 59. So you can basically get Deebo Samuel 3 to 4 rounds after Brandon Ayuk. Those, of course, will be the 2 top pass catchers if they stay healthy for the 49ers. And in games where Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk both played last season, Deebo Samuel had more targets and more receptions than Ayuk 4 out of 6 of those games. So we're looking at a guy you can get maybe 9th round in a 10-man league who can realistically become a wide receiver too by the end of the season and have a lot of value that, honestly, you might draft him and he'd be a bench piece. So I like Samuel a lot just because of the volume he might get. And I do like Ayuk, but 40 picks later, I'm not so sure.
Right. There is a big discrepancy. And remember, just 2 seasons ago before Ayuk's arrival, he was the guy. So I really like Deebo later in the draft. I think he deserves probably to be slotted behind Ayuk. Now, the distance or how many picks in between them is up for debate. I wonder, San Francisco, like you look at what Kyle Shanahan did with all the way back, I think it was 3 years ago, Nick Mullins was putting up numbers on Nick Mullins was putting up numbers on San Francisco. Then they get Jimmy G, who, in my opinion, isn't all that good. And now you eventually are probably going to move on to Trey Lance. And we saw, I think, what was it, his first completion or his second play ever in the preseason. Lance goes deep for a bomb. So maybe he unlocks that offense and it won't even matter. They'll both be, performing above their ADP. And that's when you think about general strategy for fantasy, for me, a lot of it is getting cogs in the machine. So, try and get wide receiver 2 on a great team is better than a wide receiver 1 on a terrible team. So that's how I view that, and I do like Deebo Samuel, especially if he's not banged up coming into this year.
Yes, sir. The injury, I guess, is where you get a little worrisome with him. But in the games he's played last year, he was still productive. What is your next sleeper, Jake?
So we're staying, it's a theme of wide receivers here, and I think it is deservedly so because it's the most speculative position. There's the most opportunity at that position. And I'm going to go to the team that actually, as we record here on a Saturday, the team that just finished up their game, the Chicago Bears, and one Darnell Mooney. He is a Twitter darling. They love the tape grinders love Darnell Mooney. You want to talk about sharp routes. You want to talk about being able to create separation. This is your guy. Tremendous ability, win rate. I couldn't find his win rate, but I remember seeing that it was really high. But going back to last year, he, among wide receivers, was 11th in deep targets last year, 10th in unrealized air yards. So I think that includes bad passes, missed thrown balls. And that's despite being 147th in snap share among wide receivers. So a lot of unrealized potential there. And now that you slide Justin Fields in, who I think is going to be a very good player.
Yeah, we're big believers. We've established that on the channel.
Exactly. So I really like this is Darnell Mooney's year to and remember, as we were saying, all it takes is for Chicago to go from a bad passing offense to a great passing offense, and Darnell Mooney now becomes your CD Lamb, your AJ Brown, whoever the top wide receiver 2s are in the league. I think that's his ceiling.
Yeah. I'm not sure how concerned I am about Marquise Goodwin, who's there now, because you got to think Allen Robinson's 1, Mooney
He's
2,
got that
Goodwin's
lockdown.
3.
Robinson has that lockdown, but there's still room to kind of grow for Mooney in the second, third year.
And somehow, even just thinking, my head goes Robinson. Those Chicago wide receivers get very productive fantasy numbers. Like, even when they were just losing a ton of games last year, Allen Robinson was like a top 3 wide receiver during a couple weeks, I believe. So I could see it, especially with the threat that Robinson is. You get cornerback 2s on you instead of cornerback 1s. Mooney could have a big year.
Absolutely. Now, who's your guy here?
We're going to stay with wide receivers.
Oh, boy.
Mine is Laviska Shenault, coming in at wide receiver 43 off the board, right around your boy Mooney, actually, who is wide receiver 46 in terms of average draft position. And this is my favorite sleeper, truthfully. We saw him really light it up from a fantasy perspective in a couple weeks towards the end of last season. And just like Brian Edwards, we're hearing a lot about Shenault in camp. The only one ahead of him is DJ Shark. I could see him easily becoming the number 1 pass catcher on that team. And the thing that really appeals me here is we saw a lot of targets come Laviska's way last season. Maybe not as many receptions as you'd hope, but I look targets personally, and with a guy like Trevor Lawrence coming in, you got to think more of those targets become receptions because he is a very accurate passer. So in a 10-man league, I know people play 12-man leagues, so it'd be a little earlier, but he's going 12th round on average, and it's just a lot of value. Just like we talked about with Justin Fields, I think there is that, and even Trey Lance, we talked about 49ers. There's a lot of, unknown about rookie quarterbacks. To me, is a lot of upside, and this is the best one in terms of rookie quarterbacks in Trevor Lawrence. So I think Laviska Shenault definitely gets a bump and was deserving of starts during some seasons or some weeks last year. So I think 12th round Laviska Shenault is a steal and a half.
And what I really like about him and what I think we're going to see this year is Urban Meyer use him in some sweeps, in coming out of the backfield on occasion. Yep. A lot of screens. Like, he is a big believer in getting the ball in your playmakers' hands and letting them do their thing.
Yep.
And with Shenault's physical traits, I think he's like the perfect mold for that. I mean, if you look, the guy you mentioned, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, both of them are in that same kind of role where the ball gets into their hands and then it's up to them to make plays. And he'll be in a good position. They're going to be throwing the heck out of the ball when you have the number 1 pick. That tends to happen. So I really, really like Shenault. And as I also like DJ Chark as well. I know you kind of said that you think Shenault may surpass him this year. He could, but I think DJ Chark's looking at a 1,000-yard season if he stays healthy this year.
He could be. Yep.
Yeah.
And then round off our list, Jake. Who is our last sleeper of the vid?
You really thought that we were going to get out of here without me doing my typical Philly homer bit. Well, you were incorrect. we have the current QB 12, Jalen Hurts. First year in Philly, going to lead the team to a playoff berth. I truly believe this.
Oh man.
I think that when you look at how A, the offense is being built, and B, his build as a player, you can start to draw comparisons to Josh Allen's breakout year, to Lamar Jackson's breakout year, and he also has upside to be a more of a pocket passer this year, but with his I don't know if you want to call it fresh eyes, fresh legs. Starting your first couple of NFL games, I think he's going to rely on his athleticism, as we see younger quarterbacks do. So, look, if he's healthy the whole year, he has an assortment of Devontae Smith, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. Those are, I'll put those up there against most teams. You're going to have a high upside. Now, there's also a chance he's not very good, and this is his last year as the Eagles starting quarterback. We talked about it on the podcast, that it could really go either way with Jalen Hurts, but it's too early to make a definitive decision. But I will be betting on him this year.
Yeah, and we saw him in his 4 starts last year have 3, productive, probably won him starting in your fantasy lineup games, and then one where he was QB1 of the week. So I agree with what you said about the dual threat. I think he had rushing touchdowns in 3 out of those 4 starts last season. We saw another one in the preseason already this season or was it a rushing touchdown? I think it was, but it might not have been in that first game. But regardless, we're seeing the dual threat really become the thing. You got to think first 4 quarterbacks off the board are going to be Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Kyler Murray. So why can't Jalen Hurts do something just like them? So I like it.
Yeah, to me, it's like you start to look around, and for the past 10 years, really, the guys who are consistently up in the top 5, for so long, Cam Newton was a reliable fantasy workhorse because he gets you the rushing yards and touchdowns, and that's just so valuable that you're not getting that with, your typical Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady type quarterback. So,
all right, well, I like it. And those are our picks. And while I knew I liked my sleepers, I got to agree with the guys Jake put in there. I really do like Bryan Edwards. I think there's a ton of value in him and a lot of guys on the board this season. And I hope that this video put you guys onto that. So if you enjoyed it, if you could leave a thumbs up and a subscription, it really helps us. And we really do appreciate it. And don't forget to tune in because we're dropping another video, which is going to be kind of the opposite of this, which is the guys you want to avoid picking. The guys that can save you from drafting a bad team right out of the gate. But that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out Straight Facts on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And we'll see you guys next vid.
Peace.